talkSPORT Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the talkSPORT Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search talkSPORT Fan Network.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Late Night Football Show. I'm Matt from Up the Cherries in all departments, and it's time to obviously bring in my co-host from Huddersfield Fan TV. It's my good friend Ryan. Ryan, how you doing, buddy?
Hello, Matt. Yeah, good to be back for another episode. Of course, the opening episode last week was really good. I enjoyed it, and plenty of brilliant topics to discuss this evening. So I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, great, mate. That's great. And obviously we've got our first special guest with us tonight, which is a good friend of both our channels, and that is Mr. Manny. Mr. Manny, how you doing, my friend?
All good, thank you, Mr. Harrison. And a pretty pleasant Sunday. And Mr. Mather, good to see you as always. Love the shirt you're wearing. Looks as though you got yourself a bit of a trim there.
Can you hear me, Matt? Ryan, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Could you hear Manny or not?
What, was he speaking to me or you?
No, he was speaking to you, mate. Nice shirt. And
Sorry. Right. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I did have a trim the other day actually. Yes, of course, this is the away shirt. So yeah, I love the shirt. It's nice colours. But yeah, sorry, apologies for that. Yeah, I have a few audio issues, I think. But yeah, all right.
Yeah, that's all good. I must admit, I do like that shirt you got on there, and also there's another one with sort of like red and black patterns on it.
Yeah, the third in away kits, yeah.
Oh, that's the third in the way. Okay. Well, obviously tonight we're going to discuss. We'll have a look at the European results from the week. We've got a Tranmere fan who's going to be joining us very shortly, and we'll look at the results from the weekend, and then we'll talk about the under fire managers in the Premier League and see what we think in terms of who's going to stay up, who's going to lose their job, and things like that. So just to kick things off quickly before we bring our guest in from Tranmere, let's have a just quick look at this week's Champions League results. Manny, just a quick one for you. Obviously, Arsenal. Did you manage to see that game this week? Were they better against Shakhtar than they were against Bournemouth?
The only thing that was much better about the game against Shakhtar was the result, because that performance against one of the anatomically weakest teams in that group stage was absolutely abysmal for the most part. We had to depend on own goal and a very late save from our goalkeeper to sort of scrape a 1-0 win against them. And it was one of those nights, really, where I think maybe we were suffering from a case of PTSD from the trip to Dean Court. And if I hadn't said it before, I'll say it again. Congratulations to the Cherries, easily the better team on the day. We were, we looked slow and lethargic, and after the sending off, obviously we got into a sort of a shell. Even without the sending off, we weren't exactly uprooting the cherry trees, as it were. And that performance, mind you, made me wish that I were watching Aston Villa against Bologna, and under our ex-manager and with our ex-goalkeeper, anchoring the side, they've managed to end the week top of the Champions League group stages, which is an amazing thing, really. They've beaten Bayern Munich. If they win against Club Brugge and Juventus, which isn't impossible given that they're struggling a little bit. They could end up qualifying for the round of 16 before we do. And this particular game against Shakhtar really proved, Matt, that we are just not equipped under this manager and with the squad that we have to really mount a serious challenge. And bear in mind, we've got to travel to the San Siro to take on Internazionale Milan. I do believe they are top of Serie A at the moment. They did, of course, struggle against the young boys as well, only getting a goalless draw, and the young boys aren't doing too well. But when it comes to these Champions League games, these big European games, you just know that they're going to turn up. It's an away day, so I'm not too confident. And as far as we're concerned, we have a lot of work to do. I didn't get to see the Aston Villa Bologna game, but it was definitely, a game where once again the Birmingham side exerted their control. And as far as I don't know if we're doing this in order, but maybe I'll just give you my interpretation of all 5 games and Ryan give his. I don't know how it would work, but
yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
I did see Celtic against Atalanta. The Glaswegians really put up a wonderful defensive performance. Kasper Schmeichel proving that, like a good wine, he gets better with age, and certainly like his father, he's certainly carving his own niche, if not the legacy that his father left. Liverpool obviously getting an important away win. They probably should have had some more goals against Leipzig, but they'll take the 3 points as well. And as far as City against Sparta Prague, could we expect anything less from the champions of barely a year or so gone by? I don't think so. So one of the biggest headlines was how well the English teams have been doing so far in the Champions League and in Europe, and it does make me a little bit happy in a way. And I know that we haven't even reached the halfway stage yet, but it's not for nothing that they say that well begun is half done. And I think Unai Emery, again, I can't praise this man enough. He was abused and disrespected so horribly by the Arsenal fans and drummed out so that Arteta could come in. And this just goes to show that when you join a club where you are valued and respected for the person you are and the job that you do and are given confidence, just take a look at the results. And even now they're in the top 4 in the Premier League, and they're balancing these commitments of the Premiership and Champions League very well indeed, although it must be said that they haven't really faced any of the big teams as of yet, except for us, and we beat them at Villa Park. But the thing I like about Emery is that he looks to improve. He doesn't make excuses. He doesn't blame the referee. And he's an example of how to, conduct yourself with dignity and grace, and the results are telling. And, a lot of managers in England and the continent can really learn from him. So that's basically my 2 European sense on the European action, and I hope that does it justice.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, Ryan, all I saw, mate, was the Celtic, some of the Celtic game where I thought Kasper Schmeichel, played a blinder. I think he pretty much kept that game, Celtic in that game. But did you see any of the games, mate?
I think I had the Liverpool game on me. Obviously, it was a tight game for Liverpool, but Leipzig still give them a game. But just seemed to just lack that quality. You just couldn't seem to get past Liverpool. But yeah, that was the only game I saw. But obviously, yeah, like Manny said, it's good to see the English teams doing well. I've been really impressed with Villa. Actually,
Yes.
Villa has been brilliant. I wouldn't say I thought they'd struggle but they've never. I don't think they've never been in the Champions League, have they? And the fact that they've held their own, I think it's admirable. But I think, I think Villa probably the biggest result there, because they just continue to pick up points in Europe, which I don't think I don't think anybody expected them to to pick up the points they have, especially against Bayern as well. I thought Bayern would certainly, beat them, but no. But yeah.
No, I totally echo that. I mean, Villa have been, the side really that have been, really performing well in the Champions League. And, I was quite worried when we faced them yesterday because obviously I know the kind of quality we got. Well, just quickly before we bring our Tranmere guest in, Ryan, one for you. United, so a year without a win in European competition. I didn't see any of the games, so I've got no idea. But how did United play?
Well, obviously, I think the first half was certainly a good half. But to be fair, Fenerbahce still had chances in that first half. So United were kind of lucky to be going in the break 1-0 up, to be honest with you, because I do think they had some good chances, Fenerbahce. But then, look, as with United, it happens a lot, doesn't it? First, they seem to just play for one half. And the second half, it's about managing the game. And the fact that they conceded within a few minutes of the restart, it's pretty much summed it up. And I think, it just disappointing again. And obviously, Fenerbahce even got a red card, but we still couldn't find the winner. So, another 2 points drop, no good at all. It's just a mess with United at the moment. But so that's all I have to say. Fenerbahce certainly, to me, played a good game, but I just think United really should have done a lot more in this game. And I just felt disappointed again, really, to be honest. It seems to be happening every week now, disappointment. But I think that's all I'm going to say about the game.
But obviously United have played today as well, and obviously we'll have a look at the Premier League results a little bit later on. But and just lastly, just to quickly cover off, obviously the Conference League, Hearts had a decent win, and so did Chelsea. Manny, did you see any of these games? Did you want to touch on anything very quickly before we bring our Tranmere guest in?
I think the only game I was able to see, and I'm still audible to everyone, so that's wonderful, was the second half of the Panathinaikos Chelsea game. And I first would like to start by complimenting the Chelsea team and their fans for their wonderful tribute to the late George Baldock, because I do believe that was Panathinaikos' first European game since the ex-Sheffield United defender's sad passing. And obviously it was going to be quite emotional for the club and the supporters and everyone involved. I think, if memory serves me right, Chelsea had a special shirt with the number 32 and George's name both on the back. And obviously they stood together in unison, which was wonderful to see. And from what I saw, that was pretty much a game which, it was a game where the bench strength of Chelsea, as it were, had their chance to shine and do well. And do well they did. And especially after the penalty, and I think there was a sending off in the game. A Greek player had his marching orders. I don't quite remember, but Chelsea obviously looked quite imperious, and this is, of course, a competition that Chelsea will be expected to win. But the fact that West Ham are the only English team to have won this tournament pretty much says it all. It's never guaranteed that you will get success in this competition simply because you happen to be an English team. And there are several strong teams out there who are every bit as capable of winning this tournament. But again, well begun is half done. I think I didn't get to see the Shamrock Lana game, obviously, because I couldn't get coverage of that. And I would have wanted to see the Hearts Ammonia game. But a special round of applause for Neil Critchley, the former Blackpool and QPR manager, also assistant coach at Aston Villa for a point under Steven Gerrard. So far, he seems to have done a bit of a job with them. A 4-0 win over St Mirren in the league, and then this win over Ammonia. And I do believe today they had the Edinburgh derby at Hibernian's home ground, and they came away with a very creditable point. So I think the tide is starting to turn a little bit, but again, it is very early days, and several players will have to stand up to be counted. Lawrence Shankland being one of them. But hats off to Craig Gordon once again. He gets knocked down, but he gets up again. You can never, ever keep him down, as the song would go. And still proving that he is Scotland's best goalkeeper. Although maybe a few Scotland fans listening might want to disagree with me on that. He will definitely have a big role to play as the season goes on. But what can I say? The hearts are beating again.
Yeah, definitely. But it was a good week of obviously Euro games for the English sides. And well, just very quickly, we've got Doug that's come in tonight. Evening to you, Doug. And thank you for joining us. Now we're going to bring in a guest from a Tranmere, who have got some interesting potential investments going on up there. But to explain it a bit better, we'll bring our guest in now, who's Joe. Joe, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. So, yeah, there's some interesting stuff going on up at Tranmere at the minute with potential investment from a US rapper. I mean, what can you tell us about what's going on?
Well, the question of takeover has been a big topic over the past 2 years, especially Mark Palios has invested a lot into the club, and he's had us with back-to-back promotion. He's had it at the lowest point, and I think there does come a point where he's done so much. To be fair to him, he's getting on a bit now, and I think the reins need to be passed over. And the fact that it's come in this form, or potentially in this form, is exciting. It's really exciting. And I, if it does go through, then happy days. But until then, I think the football club needs to concentrate on itself. I think the players, the fans, and whatever need to concentrate on themselves. But if it does happen, then absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. So do you know if there's about any potential plans that they've got with the club in terms of like maybe from the playing side or maybe the infrastructure of the club? Is there anything about that out at the moment, or is it just all rumours?
So it's mainly all rumours at the moment. Nobody knows for certain. Mark Palios has wanted a new stadium built on the docks, which is near Bidston, which is the filled-in dock, and it's less of a stadium; it's more of a sports village with a stadium in it. Right. As you can imagine, with Prenton Park being a fortress, there's quite a few fans that are objecting to that, but I can see that happening with new owners. I can see that happening. So that's in terms of the stadium. In terms of the staff and players, I just kind of hope we do a bit of a Wrexham singer versus filmmaker rivalry, and I kind of hope we just do a Wrexham and take off. But we shall see.
I mean, in terms of the stadium, obviously there's a picture of it there. I mean, I don't know if that's a fairly recent picture, but in terms of, someone coming in and buying the club, the stadium's pretty decent in comparison to some stadiums across the country.
Yeah, it's about 16,500, 17,000. So there's the massive cop stand, there's the main stands, the big away stand, the Cowshed, and then the Johnny King. And the stadium, it needs either a big refurbishment or it just needs a lick of paint. It is getting on a bit. There is a bit in the front of the Kop where nobody really sits because there's a big hole in the roof and water comes through. It needs development. It needs development. It just needs a lick of paint, and it's just getting on a bit. Up until a month ago, I volunteered at the club, and it's just you go around different bits of the stadium that you may not be able to as a fan, and they're just a few bits where you think, "Ooh, that's not nice."
Yeah,
there's quite a few, especially in the away end, thanks to a team that we lost 2-0 to the other week. There's a few broken seats in the away end, but then they take seats from other parts of the stadium because it's such an old ground.
Right.
that we can't get those spare parts in. So it's like, yeah, new stadium, new owners might be a good idea, but then we don't want to move away from what we see as our spiritual home.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think sometimes when clubs move away from their spiritual home, I think things tend to go a little bit downhill sometimes. But yeah, so in terms of your playing staff and your manager, is it Neil Adkins, I believe? Is that right?
Nigel Adkins.
Nigel Adkins, that's it. I remember when he used to be manager at Southampton. You as a fan base pleased with the management and the playing staff, or do you think when the new investment comes in, that's something that needs to be looked at first? Or
So after the Crew result yesterday, where we lost 3-1, we lost 3-1 actually after going 1-0 ahead as well. The revolving thing now is Adkins out,
right?
Which is, I think, is not long overdue, but I am surprised it's taken this long for people to start saying that. I get, because of Nigel Adkins' experience, how well he did at Southampton and Scunthorpe, I feel like that it's Nigel Adkins is a god. Nobody really questions him. Nobody really questions his decisions because of how experienced he is. And to be fair, last season he gave us, I think, the 3 highlights of last season: beating top of the league Mansfield 2-1 at home, beating Stockport 4-0 at home, and then going to beat Wrexham away on Derby Day as well. And he gave us 3 really good highlights, and along with mainly Rob Apter from Blackpool, who had on loan, he gave the team that boost of energy. He is so positive, and it rubs off on the fans and the players as well. And unfortunately, I just think, with lots of rumours going around about new owners, lots of things with the players might be worrying that they might lose out from it, or they might get moved on because the owners might not see them as being good enough, or maybe Nigel Adkins needs to change the way he manages football, which can be really hard to do for managers. They like to stick to their ways, but yeah, it's just after yesterday, the revolving thing is Adkins out, and everybody's saying as soon as the new owners can come in, pay him off. And I am neither for or against it. I'm quite neutral about it at the moment.
Right, okay, yeah. I mean, that's fair enough. Ryan, Manny, have you got any questions for Joe regarding the potential takeover or how the season's going so far?
Yeah, I've got a question. Hello there, by the way. For me, my question is, how has this kind of rumor come about then? Is Matt Palios wanted to sell the club for a while, or is it you know what I mean? What's kind of the situation there? And also, with this rumor, is it being a positive, from the fans, like the fans excited about, and happy that potentially, this guy could come in? Well, what's the overall feeling about it at this early stage?
I think any football fan that supports a football club with a new owner coming in that's got a girlfriend that has a net worth of £1 billion would be excited. Definitely. I seen something on one of the football news things that their combined net worth is just under $2 billion.
Oh.
And there's another investor. I don't know whether you've seen on the news. He's an American football player. I think he plays in New York, and he's mega rich as well. So you got ASAP Rocky, Rihanna, Joe Tacopina, and that American football player who I've forgotten the name of. But we as fans are dead excited. But then there's so many rumors going about. Nobody really knows what to believe at the moment, and Mark Palios can't disclose anything because he's under quite a few non-disclosure agreements. Which when we had our season Q&A with the trust, I think it was a month or so ago, he's confirmed that Joe Tacopina had been one of the people looking to buy the club. He said that a lot of them have stayed away. But with Joe Takapina being, this loud American person, he wanted to make himself known at the football club. So he sort of wore a big hat and got his Tranmere stuff on and came to one of the games. And I think we all noticed it a month before the Q&A. We all noticed him, and it was all over Twitter. We all kind of knew something was going to happen. We all had this sort of feeling that something would change. And then he said in the, I think it was a talkSPORT interview a couple of weeks ago, that the club has never formally been for sale, but they've definitely been trying to attract investors. Tranmere's had the reputation for being one of the best run clubs in terms of there's no debt in the club, really. There's no debt. It's an incredibly run club, and it's self-sustainable. It can keep itself going. But I think with that being the way it is, and because Mark Palios has put so much money into the club, that means that our budgets to do other things like players and stuff isn't as high as we want it to be. So then we're getting, I think the summer transfer window, we paid for one player, and it's Josh Davison. He hasn't scored a goal in the league yet. So it's like, it's all freebies at the moment. It's all players on free transfers or renewing contracts. But I hope that with the new owners, we don't drop into debt and they don't do the thing where they sort of buy the stadium, buy this team, make houses, sell the club off kind of thing. Because it's with Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney bought Wrexham from the fans. And the only reason the fans had it is because a really rich man had bought the club, ran it into the ground. It was going to go extinct, and then the fans bought it out and saved the club. And we've sort of got to put our trust in another person. So yeah, we're excited, but then we don't want to trust just yet, especially about that trial with ASAP Rocky and Joe Takapina that was on the news the other day as well. So they're both in court together about something. So we don't want to put all of our trust in yet, but yeah, we're excited about it.
Yeah,
money at the end of the day.
Yeah,
definitely.
Okay, and sorry, Matthew, I'm sorry for cutting you, but I do have one question. Joe, good evening to you, mate. And I think it was interesting to hear you speak about how the the sort of attitude around the club is that Nigel Adkins needs to leave. And obviously, apart from Southampton, I remember he also managed at Reading, if I'm not wrong. And I think it's fair to say that Southampton gig was probably his, high water mark as a manager. I don't know if he's been able to quite do very much since, but in the lower league, maybe he's done some good work. And it is, of course, par for the course that when a club is set to be taken over and best laid plans are sort of laid out, a new manager, of course, will probably be on the table. But even without the takeover, it does seem clear that Adkins doesn't necessarily have the best reputation among the fans anymore. And obviously, even notwithstanding the wonderful moments that he's given you, past glories count for nothing, and football is a ruthless business, and football management is also every bit as ruthless. Are there any possible managerial candidates that the fans are interested in? And do you have anyone in mind who'd be interested in taking over? And another reason why is that given Tranmere's situation, it's also very important, and Matt can back me up on this as a Bournemouth fan who's also his club's also been brought out by an American. One of the most important things that a manager will need to do, and I think Reynolds and McElhenney have done that at Wrexham, is really invest themselves in the area and the character of the place, and also immerse themselves in the history. And I just wonder if they have any managerial candidates in mind. Maybe it's speculation. I can't really read their minds. But going back to my original question, who would you have in mind to take over from Adkins?
It's a good question, because not like you said, a manager that invests in the club and the local area and the atmosphere is really important. And Nigel Adkins is a Birkenhead lad. He's a Tranmere fan as a young lad, and that'll be difficult to replace. But the name that's going around Twitter at the moment is Ryan Lowe, the Preston North End manager who got sacked. And I think that's a big ask to come down from the Championship to little old Tranmere in 19th in League Two. But if Wrexham can have Phil Parkinson, then we can have Ryan Lowe. So, Ryan Lowe is the top one. Other names, I don't really know. There's not. I don't think at the moment there's not many managers out there that would be willing to come to Tranmere under the current time. The only other manager I could really think of is nicking Stephen Cotterill from Forest Green. Brilliant manager, did really well with Shrewsbury, and I maybe him, but Ryan Lowe's a free manager at the moment, so that's the top one, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting. Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, yes, it's always good to think about what kind of manager you want to replace your current one if they're not doing well. And like you say, there's not many names on the list, is there? That's available at the moment. Ryan, Manny, any other questions?
No.
No? Well, everyone's asked.
No,
So I remember Prenton Park, isn't it? The stadium's called, if I remember rightly, and I think that was the last. That was the last ground that Bournemouth played a League One game in. I think it was last game of the season, and we drew 0-0. And if we had won that day at Prenton Park, we would have been champions of League One. But we only drew, and I think that was the game when Brentford were playing Doncaster. And Brentford hit the bar one end, and then Doncaster went straight down the other end and scored and won the league, if I remember rightly. But Tranmere, I remember many games that Bournemouth played against Tranmere. But no, that's great to hear. Obviously, a fan's point of view on the takeover. So, thank you very much for coming on to talk about that. I mean, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the show if you want. We're going to be talking about the Premier League results, some more Sky Bet EFL results, and then we're talking about some of the under fire managers in the Premier League, Joe. So I mean, if you want to stay with us and have some input, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, by all means.
I mean, that's great. I mean, what we're going to go on to now is the Premier League results from this weekend, and obviously from United fans' point of view, it's not been a great weekend, but Arsenal's game tonight, Manny, did you manage to catch that one?
Oh, that I did. A tale of two halves, Jekyll and Hyde. We start the half at a good speed, catching Liverpool completely cold. I could watch Bukayo Saka turning Andrew Robertson inside out all day. And that finish was literally top class. Even if Alisson had been in goal instead of Queven Kelleher, I don't think he would have stopped that. But then obviously, with the injuries starting to creep into our defence, we had to field a makeshift back four. I do not like seeing Thomas Partey at left back. I do not like seeing Urian Timber at left back. I do not like seeing Ben White in the centre. And, I mean, what can I say? I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam, I am. And there were always going to be some moments when, Liverpool's midfield and attack would start to, assert their dominance and get the better of us. And when you've got Trent Alexander-Arnold operating the set pieces, all you can do is just kneel down and pray. That is, unless you are in the penalty area trying to guard that corner. And also, do not ever take your eyes off Mohamed Salah. As long as he's around, he can definitely make some magic happen. Now, on one hand, it might be prudent to say that, given that we had a few injuries coming into the game and we ended up losing a few more people, basically dropping like flies, having to be replaced, getting some knocks, we did show a little bit of spirit. But once again, when you take that away, we once again had a 2-1 lead against a league title contender, and we weren't able to hold on to it. And at the end of the day, we have to look at it as 2 points dropped. Now, a lot of people have started to basically wring their hands, the doomsayers, as it were, saying that we've got no chance of catching City. One of the wonderful things about the Premier League is that at any given time, any team can have a slump and any team can have a run of form. It's a little bit like feasting and famine in, slightly different timescales, as it were. And, we can still bounce back if we just get everything together. But the problem is we're having some more injuries. We're having to field a weakened team. And Joe was talking about Preston. I do believe we've got them in the League Cup next week, and we should be able to win that. But again, knowing Mikel Arteta, his cup record has been abysmal. I just think that, once again, we start well, but we just aren't able to cope with it. And although I'd like to give a little bit of credit to some of the players who were playing in unfamiliar positions for doing a good job, Partey, doing quite well at right back, surprisingly, certain players who had big reputations and still have big reputations just weren't able to, step up when it really mattered. And after Bournemouth defeat, we needed a morale booster. For what it's worth, we are still third in the league, tied on points with Aston Villa, who, of course, would have finished above us had it not been for Evan Nilsson. But, we still have quite a bit of work to do, and we definitely have to do some work in January to try and address some of our squad deficiencies. I'm not upset with the point, but I'm not happy with 2 points dropped. And, we've got Newcastle coming up also, I think, next week in the Premiership, and then can't quite put my finger on who we've got next. But these are going to be difficult games coming thick and fast now. And we have to really make sure that we don't start getting complacent. And even if people might say that we have shown that once again we can fight against the contenders, it's sometimes the games against the likes of Bournemouth and others which prove to be our banana skins. So mixed feelings, I think, to sum it all up. Mixed feelings more than anything else.
I mean, we've also had, obviously, Chelsea and Newcastle today. Cole Palmer again popping up with a win, I believe, if I remember rightly. Bit of a shock result today. Crystal Palace beating Spurs. I don't know if anybody saw any of that action, but I think that was a bit of one that come out of the blue. But we'll be discussing Palace a little bit more detail very shortly. Ryan, did you manage to see the game today, the United game, or did you not want to watch that one after the midweek?
Well, I couldn't get it on because obviously it wasn't on TV, was it?
Was it not?
No. It was because it was moved to Sunday because of the the Europa League. So it was moved obviously kind of. So yeah, that's why it was meant to be the Saturday game, but yeah. But yeah, obviously I was listening to it anyway. But yeah, I mean, look, honestly, just terrible. The first half, I thought United played well, but they had eight shots. They dominated the first half, just couldn't score, which has been this. It's just been the kind of, kind of the norm for United. It's just happened over and over again. Obviously, so West Ham, and for me, the penalty that they got, and you've got to watch it. For me, everybody say it definitely wasn't a penalty, and the fact that it went to VAR, and don't get me going on VAR, because VAR is just a travesty to football, in my opinion. I think it was supposedly brought in to help the referee, but yeah, it's just caused so much chaos, and the amount of controversial decisions that has happened under VAR, there's far too many. If you look at other sports as well where they have this technology, you don't see that anywhere. Prime example is rugby. I don't really watch rugby, but I know that rugby, that is how you operate. It's technology, and the refs mic'd up and everything. But yeah, I'm going off on a tangent, but I hate VAR, and I'm not blaming VAR for the result, by the way, because I think
Yeah.
United should have had that game won at half time. It should have been, to me, it should have been 2 or 3-0. It should have been, to me. But yeah, that just sums up how United are going at the moment. And to be, 14th in the league, it's just unacceptable. But the problem is, Ineos have accepted that. Ineos have accepted being 14th in the table because they should have got rid of Ten Hag in the international break, in my view, because it clearly isn't going to work with him. But Ineos have not been brought in. They have not been brought in to take United back to the top. I believe they're just being brought in to make as much money as they want, as they can, and and in the process, cutting costs of staff left, right, and centre. Getting rid of Alex's ambassadorial role, which I think is disgusting. They don't care about the history or the legacy of the club. So Ineos for me, I'm at the end. I just think Ineos are just another Glazers, unfortunately. But look, I'm going off on one. But another disgraceful showing, and I'm just tired of watching United now. It just feels like, yeah, I'm just fed up.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, it is frustrating, obviously, from the heritage United have got, obviously, to what they've been producing in the last few years hasn't been great. Joe, have you managed to catch any of the games from the Premier League over the weekend?
I've not particularly watched any of them, but I have watched the highlights for most of them. And the two standout games for me were probably obviously the Brentford and Ipswich game, and then the Brighton and Wolves game. I believe Wolves got an equaliser really late on.
Yeah.
I could have guessed that because I seen a video on Twitter today from the half-empty Wolves stand where there was absolute bedlam when they scored. But the Brentford and Ipswich game, I think everybody wants Ipswich to stay up.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I think everybody wants Ipswich to stay up. I don't really have a Premier League team. My Premier League team would probably be Man United. But I think I wouldn't mind Ipswich beating Man United, but purely because I just want Ipswich to stay up. The fact they've done back-to-back promotion, I think Kieran McKenna is a brilliant manager. I think he's a brilliant bloke. They've got a great fan base. It just feels like a family club, doesn't it? I mean, it just feels like you take your family to go and watch Ipswich.
Yeah.
And I think that's unfortunate. I think that result's unfortunate. I think it was a 90+6. They conceded that penalty, and I just feel so sorry for them at the moment. But I suppose if you do League One to the Premier League in 2 years, I suppose usually what you got to expect. But apart from them two games, I think they're all pretty standard expected results, really. Maybe Crystal Palace beating Spurs is a bit of a shock. But apart from that, I think they're all standard results for me.
Yeah, no, cool. I mean, in terms of my lot yesterday, I can't say I'm really happy with that result. I've got to be honest. Don't know if anyone saw the highlights of the saves that Travers was making in goal and defensively how Bournemouth played. We played really well, but I don't think the highlights showed the full how well Bournemouth played fully. The match of the day highlights mainly focused on Villa's perspective, but yeah, no, I'm very, very happy with the draw from yesterday. Like Joe's just said, the Brentford Ipswich game, and that Ipswich really unlucky. I mean, I am really rooting for Ipswich to stay up. It's kind of like a Luton story from last year. I really wanted them to stay up, but that was unfortunate. City, apparently, there was some good stuff said about Southampton on Match of the Day in terms of how Southampton played, but obviously it still came out as a loss for them. I do think they probably will end up going down still. Forest Friday night obviously beat Leicester, so their good start continues. And Everton Fulham, I had that one down as a draw. So yeah, not surprised by that one. But that's the Premier League anyway. Let's take a quick look at the Sky Bet Championship results from yesterday. And obviously there was a game today. Norwich and Middlesbrough both drawing 3-3. Yeah, a couple of decent games in there from what I've seen on the highlights in terms of Plymouth Argyle, Preston North End, obviously, who Manny's mentioned that Arsenal facing the Cup this week. They drew 3-3. And then I managed to catch some of the Coventry City Luton Town game live, where Luton looked like at one point they were in control of the game, but unfortunately went on to be defeated. So their poor start to the season continues. Same as Portsmouth on Friday night. Guys, anyone want to have a say on any of the results here that stand out for you guys in the Championship?
Cardiff away at West Brom to get a draw from where they started is ridiculous. Their win in the derby, I think, did they win the derby against Bristol a couple of weeks ago? I swear they did, but it might have been a draw. I think it was 1-1. But to go there, get a draw, then do 2 wins in a row, and then go to West Brom and get a draw. What a turnaround that is! I mean, I had them. I think after they lost one of the games like 4-0 or something like that, I had them written off, and then a week later they go and do the derby against Bristol, get a 1-1 draw, and then they beat Plymouth 5-0. And I was like, whoa, hang on a second. Because I was just scrolling through some of the scores and I seen that and I was like, that's ridiculous. But I think Cardiff are doing really well. So that's a huge result. Obviously, Sunderland are running away now. Sunderland are doing brilliant. I thought Portsmouth are doing Ipswich personally, but obviously that's not to be the case. They ran League One. So I am surprised that's gone the way it has done. But apart from that, Preston were 3-0 up against Plymouth, and Plymouth came back from 3 down. That's really good. And then Luton coming down from the Premier League to where they are now is just disappointing.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yes, I echo what you say there with Pompey. I thought they'd be doing much better in the Championship than they have done. Obviously, their poor start continues. Rock bottom of the league now, I think they are, aren't they, Pompey?
Yeah.
But yeah, League One. Ryan, I'll come to you for this one. Your guys' good result yesterday, so your good start to the season continues. How was the game?
Yeah, played well. It was controlled. I really enjoyed it. It was a comfortable victory. There were a few moments where Exeter got in there, but more or less, I was happy defensively and I was happy with what we were producing. We just got the job done again. And yeah, it's pleasing to keep that winning form continuing recently. But we are playing catch up after that terrible spell of losing 4 on the bounce. So we need to keep winning games. Because, like the owner said, being 5th in the league isn't good enough for us. We need to be up there close to the top 2. To me, then yes, okay, we're only 4 points off that now, but I still think we should be more up there. We don't have any entitlement to be up there because you come down from the Championship doesn't mean you're going to be bouncing straight back up. It doesn't work like that. But yeah, but look, I was happy. Like I said, I think to me, it's good to see Matty Pearson just seems to be in the right place at the right time all the time. Always scoring goals from set pieces, and Ben Wild was a great strike as well, Chris. So yeah, no, it was good. It was a good win, especially when Exeter aren't an easy team to break down. Even they've had loads of clean sheets lately, and so yeah, but yeah, it was good to get a win. We just have to keep going now, and keep consistent. So yeah, that's us.
Yeah, no, it's good to see that you guys won. I actually had you down to win actually on Saturday. And obviously there's a game tomorrow night. Blackpool play Wigan. But in terms across the other results, Birmingham drew. Bit surprised that they drew actually. Birmingham, I had them down as a win. And Wrexham drew at Charlton. But
Charlton got a late win. They got a late equaliser in that one.
yes,
I think that was 90+3, a penalty again.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember when I last checked, before I checked when I did the results earlier, that I thought Wrexham had won 2-1, to be honest, but it was a late equaliser, very late equaliser again. Then so, yeah, There's League Two just to have a quick look at before we move on to looking at the managers in the Premier League. Game of the day in that one looks like there's a couple of game of the days really. I mean, you got Morecambe 2, Chesterfield 5. Port Vale beat AFC Wimbledon 3-2. That was quite a good game from when I was following the scores on Saturday. Guys, I mean, I don't know if anyone saw any of the highlights from this division, but if anyone wants to have a shout out for a game that they thought was a decent game, over to you.
It's a decent game for Crewe on Saturday.
Yeah. Obviously, I do want to mention it.
I'll tell you what. Crewe, Tranmere for the first 25 minutes were Barcelona. But after that, I thought we were Woodchurch FC from down the road. To be honest, I think Crewe will do well this season. They played very, very good football. The only thing that I'd really say, Tranmere defensively, yet again, I think it's Nigel Adkins' dinosaur tactics. We conceded the same goal, the two same players, the same assist, the same goal scorer, the same wing, the same place in the box.
God.
It was just, it was ridiculous. And then the second goal was just poor man marking by Brad Walker and Regan Hendry. It just, honest to God, it feels like all the players in the box are just away with the fairies and they don't really know what they're doing. Defensively, it's so shoddy. I mean, I think our captain's 32 this year. The left back's 30. Right back's Cameron Norman from MK Dons. He's probably, apart from Amari Patrick, probably the best player this season so far. But apart from that, I think everybody's just a bit. We haven't got a striker. I think in 15 games we've scored 8 goals.
That's not good.
And conceded 16, 17. We are not in a good place. But we were unbeaten for the first 5 games of the season, so yeah. At least we can look. At least we can rave upon the first 5 games being okay. We all seen Carlisle away as a good result, but from what they're doing now, it probably wasn't. But apart from that, the Port Vale game seemed all right. Swindon getting a late equaliser against Gillingham, that'll do well for them because they're really struggling. And the only other one was Doncaster getting a win against Bradford at Bradford Place. I think that'll be massive for Doncaster and will dent Bradford's performances because from when I seen Bradford beat us at our place, Bradford weren't the better team at all, but they've got Andy Cook. I mean, what a striker Andy Cook is. He played at Tranmere in the National League in the first season that we came back to the Football League, I think. And oh my Lord, what a striker! I mean, I think his last season was the 3rd season in a row he's done 20+ goals.
Yeah,
he is. I'm so surprised. Like a Championship or top end League One club hasn't come for him because what a player! He's 33, but he isn't slowing down, and I don't think he will do anytime soon. I think he's already on 9 goals this season, so he'll do all right, I think.
Yeah, it's from the sounds of it, yes, it is surprising that he hasn't moved up to a higher division. But I'm sure there's scouts out there probably watching him week out, week in, and you never know, you might get a decent move at some point. But yeah, that covers
ASAP
off.
Rocky buying him.
yeah, it could be your first signing with the takeover. But yeah, that's a quick look, obviously, through the scores from the weekend. But now we're going to have a look at the managers that are under. Oh, sorry, Manny. After you. Sorry.
Yeah, I do apologise, and this will segue into the issue of managers under fire. One of the results, of course, and I should have probably spoke about this earlier, was Luton Town, going 2-0 up, but then obviously suffering that rather crushing 3-2 defeat. And a lot of talk this season has been about how, after the high of qualifying for promotion to the Premiership, and then having that season where they earned so many admirers but didn't get enough points and went straight back down, it does seem as though they're sort of having a bit of I don't know if it's a kind of a hangover. Maybe they just don't. I wonder if that relegation has demoralised them, because now, as we speak, of course, they are 22nd in the Premiership right now, out of 24 teams, and also very much in the mix for relegation alongside QPR and Portsmouth. And I do tend to believe that maybe they just seem, shorn of confidence, shorn of happiness. And I wonder if maybe Rob Edwards might have taken them as far as he possibly can. And it could very well be that he end up, saying a sad goodbye to Kenilworth Road. I just wonder if maybe, we can have a quick discussion on what exactly is affecting them, because obviously the three of you will have a lot more, knowledge of the championship and league system below the Premiership than I do.
Yeah, we did actually have Mark on last week. We discussed a bit about Luton's poor start to the season, and was it a Premier League hangover? So, I mean, from what Mark was saying, from what I can remember, it was Ryan. Can you remember? He did explain, didn't he, about their start to the season. He did give us a bit of info, didn't he, on what he felt was the problem with coming back down to the Championship.
Yeah, obviously they have lost a few players, and obviously, look, when you come, the thing is with Luton is that I don't think they were ever ready for the Premier League. A bit like Huddersfield, when we went up, we weren't ready for the Premier League. And look what happened to us. And it does hit those kind of clubs harder if they go down, unfortunately. And I think that's what's happening. That's what's happening here. But I can't remember what he actually said, to be fair. I think he might have said it might have been a little bit of a hangover. But
yeah, that's what I remember. Manny, I think the best bet might be to check out the last episode of this. And Mark goes into quite a bit of detail on his thoughts on Luton and their poor start to the season. Because I can't remember off the top of my head everything he said. It was quite detailed from what I can remember, because me and Ryan spoke to him for must have been about 20 minutes or so, 15 minutes, and he kind of really laid it out on where he thinks the problems are, and we did ask him whether he thinks it's a plan to turn it around there. And so yeah, I reckon check that one out, and that should answer all your questions, Manny, I reckon, on that one. Right.
Check it out. I will check it out, Matt, and I do apologise for asking that question, and maybe
no, that's fine.
Should have been ahead of the curve. But it could very well be that it could very well be that Rob Edwards might end up, being asked to leave early in the Championship, and it would be a sad way to go. And I guess it just goes to show, as Ryan can agree, that you just can't ruminate over these disappointments, and you can't allow them to affect your psyche. And at least in Huddersfield's case, and I remember that season very well, they played well enough to stay up that time, and David Wagner was doing a brilliant job over there. I remember that team quite well.
Absolutely.
But it's sad what's happening to Luton. I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ryan.
No. I was just saying that Luton obviously went down first season, but obviously we did stay up that first season. We went down the second season, but Yeah. But look, I don't know. I think Rob Edwards seems to be struggling for ideas. And the problem is, it is a results based because, yes, he got into the Premier League, but there isn't any consolation. They need results now, and they've started the season so badly. So it's just not good enough.
Yeah. No, you're right, Ryan.
Absolutely. And losing Ross Barkley.
Yeah.
Losing Ross Barkley hasn't helped. I mean, look how well he's doing at Aston Villa. But hopefully, from Rob Edwards, we'll go back to some Premier League managers.
Yes, let's have a look at some of those. Now, first manager to discuss is, and he had a pretty decent result yesterday, is Wolves. Is Gary O'Neill the man to turn it around at Wolves? Now, if Craig's watching this, I'm sure there'll be a comment in a minute saying yes, he is, because Craig loves Gary O'Neill. But guys, let me just throw it out to you three. Obviously, he had a spell at Bournemouth. He did a good job at Bournemouth. He kept us in the Premier League, which was, the main job for him that season. But I never was a massive fan of his playing style. Good coach, really good coach. The players liked him as a coach, but I thought long term he wasn't probably the man for Bournemouth, especially with the new ownership coming in when they did. What do you guys think? Do you think Gary's the man to turn it around at Molineux and keep Wolves in the Premier League, or do you reckon they're possibly doomed for the Championship? Let's go one by one if we can. Let's start with you, Joe, if that's all right. You got any thoughts on Gary O'Neill and Wolves' season so far, and can he keep him in the league?
With Wolves is a difficult one because I quite like Wolves.
Yeah.
I think I don't know what it is about Wolves. I just have a soft spot for them, and I think it's unfortunate where they are, and I don't think they necessarily play awful football. I mean, getting that result yesterday against Brighton, I mean that's a good result, and it's a start. And like the situation with Luton, when you start losing games, it's really, really difficult to stop that and turn it around. So I think where they are now, getting that result against Brighton, especially away at Brighton at the Amex, it will be a big benefit. So in my opinion, I'd give him time, let him try and keep them up. And if he gets to January and they're still in the relegation zone or they're still very, very close to it, then I'd start thinking about, right, okay, maybe there needs to be some sort of change here.
Yeah, that's fair comment, mate. Manny, what's your thoughts?
Well, like our good friend Mr. Beasley, I'm also very much Gary in. And the thing about Mr. O'Neill, as you can testify, and Craig can definitely testify, is that he is a hard-working sort of coach who is quite dedicated, who definitely, really puts his heart into it. And I know that doesn't count for very much these days, but you can tell, obviously, that the way he tries to set up the team and how he tries to get the best out of them, especially given the circumstances of losing the likes of Max Gilman, Pedro Neto, and several and other players who literally were the spine of that team back in the day. It hasn't really been easy. And I think that Chelsea loss at home kind of, really did put them on the back foot. But what I saw against Manchester City was quite enough to convince me that they could start to hold their own. They could start to get it together. And for what it's worth, they now have a couple of games against Crystal Palace, and we're going to talk about Glasgow and also Russell Martin with Southampton. And these could be good opportunities for Wolves to get some wins here, notwithstanding, of course, the fact that Glasgow got his win over Spurs earlier today. And that's sort of the thing about. I think he's probably the type of manager who could do very well with the team struggling a little bit in terms of confidence and trying to avoid relegation and keep them up and make sure they stay afloat. But can he really take them to a slightly higher level the way I think Iraola has done? I don't think so. And I think even Craig would also accept that as much as he loved Gary O'Neill, having Iraola coming over to Bournemouth has been really, really good for the Cherries in every way. But there is a lot that I like about O'Neill, and I do think he deserves a chance. But I'll tell you what, if he isn't able to get wins against the likes of Southampton and Ipswich and Crystal Palace and other teams in that relegation zone, then questions will be asked. And obviously they will have a review probably in December, I think. And then maybe they'll start to have some talks about maybe replacing him in time for the January, for the month of January. And then maybe the new manager can take it from there. But I really do think that O'Neill can turn it around, and I do hope he turns it around. And I think, as I said, I do like the bloke, and I really do hope that he'll get his chance. And I do seem to remember that Ryan was never a big fan of O'Neill at Bournemouth, and now he'll probably say that maybe it is time for a change. I'm just predicting, really, because I do remember those streams we did. But no, I think it's fair to say that, Ryan, on this issue, mate, you might be outnumbered 2-1, but I'm ready to hear what you'll have to say now on this.
Yeah, no, for me, I think, yeah, look, this is a results-based business, isn't it? And yeah, okay, it's fine margins, but I don't know, you can't leave it too late, because, you know, if they don't turn it around, then they go, you know what I mean? They're going to get caught adrift a little bit. So, but like I say, if they can beat the teams that are around them, then that certainly will be a big factor. But for me, I don't know. I just think the resources he does have at Wolves, to be fair, maybe it isn't too much. But yeah, for me, maybe give him 1 or 2 more games. If they've got teams that are around them. If they don't win the next few games, then they are really going to have to think about what they, you know, if they want to keep him or bring somebody else in. Because, like I said, you need to give the manager time to be able to save the club. So I know there's loads of games left, but yeah, I think a few more games. But like Manny said, I'm not a big fan of Gary O'Neill either, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, what I'd just say is, like I said, you know, he did a good job at Bournemouth in terms of keeping us up. Was never a massive fan of the style of play. But like Manny said, he's a dedicated manager. You can see that he's got real passion. You know, when you see him in his interviews, things like that. And he's a very, very good coach. But yeah, that's kind of where I sit with him. But just very quickly before we move on to the next manager. So, Ryan, are you saying Wolves should make a change, or stay with Gary O'Neill?
No, I'm saying if it doesn't pick up in the next couple of games, he has to go, in my view.
Right.
Because it's a results-based business. It doesn't matter if he's passionate. You need results. If he's not getting results, then they need a change. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm in your court with this one. And Manny and Joe, do you think that you know, he will turn it around at Wolves?
Like my situation at Tranmere, I think at the moment the list of free managers that could manage in the Premier League is very short at the moment.
Yeah.
So I think they've got to stick it out for a bit. Whether it comes to the point where it's so bad that they might have to go without a manager for a bit, just so they could try and get back on their own feet, whether that outweighs the fact that they won't be able to replace him for a while or with anybody good for a while, that's a different issue. But for now, I'd stick it out just purely based off the fact that it's not going to be a quick process in finding a new manager.
Yeah, cool. And Manny, you're a stick with for now, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he deserves his chance, and I do believe the players who play for him, and you can tell how much it meant to them when they scored that equaliser. And I told myself, I remember saying to myself, mind you, that if they had lost, then I mean, Gary O'Neill would have faced more than the tough questions in quotation marks at the end. I think there would have been a lot of harsh words exchanged and maybe a lot of soul searching, some tears. But thankfully, Mateus Cunha said, not today. And I'm really happy. But whether it's going to be, something life-saving or just, delaying the inevitable will remain to be seen. But I do like what's happened. I think Gary deserves a chance. But as Ryan says, it is a results business. So at the end, it's not in my hands or anyone else's, but the board, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, true. Let's have a look at the next guy. And it'd be interesting to get all your thoughts on this one. So can Martin become a saint and save Southampton? Now, I think he's got a big task on his hands here at Saints. And not just because they're down the road from Bournemouth, but I did feel at the beginning of the season that they will potentially be relegated. I think that's where we put them in our tier list as well, when we did the tier list, Manny, if you can remember. I think we did. But yeah, Ryan, let's start with you this time. Can Russell Martin keep Saints in the Premier League? Is he the man to do the job?
Absolutely not. No, he is not. I'm sorry. I do not rate this manager. I think he is, I think, he seems to be really struggling in the Premier League. Championship, he did well, but I just think he's clearly not working with what he's trying to do, and he's keeping it the same, and he's not. Yes, managers have to kind of stick to their principles, but you have to adapt as well. And if it's not working, then you need to make a change. You need to change it a little bit. But he seems very stubborn in his own ways. I don't see anything changing under this manager. And I think, for me, the time is up for Russell Martin. He needs to go and to give Southampton the best chance of staying up, because I've watched them. I think they were on the telly. I can't remember when they were last on the telly, but I watched them a few times this season, I think. And I just think to myself, what are you... The players don't seem to be buying into what he's asking either for some reason. I don't know if he's lost the dressing room, but for me, I don't rate the manager, and he has to go, and as soon as possible. And I'm not a Southampton fan either, but I'm sorry, he's not going to keep them up if they keep him in charge. I'll say.
Yeah, okay, that's fair dues, mate. That's fair dues. Manny, what's your views on Russell Martin and Saints this season?
A manager in times of difficulty must be willing to show a bit of humility. It's bad enough that Martin says that he's not going to, abandon his open style, despite the fact that the team just doesn't really have what it takes to maintain that against some bigger opposition. I thought what he said when Southampton lost to Leicester in the night with that goal from Jordan Ayew breathlessly late was exceptionally in poor taste. One person had one job to do, and they couldn't do it, in quotes. I'm sorry, but even notwithstanding the fact that he didn't identify that player by name, you do not, absolutely do not, engage in that tactic of throwing a player under the bus like that. I'm sorry, but that's just disgusting. I don't like it when Mourinho does it. I don't like it when any other manager does it. By all means, rip into that individual player in the dressing room, do what, the likes of Fergie and Cloughy back in the day used to do, and give that person the hairdryer treatment. I mean, you can give them the stick or the carrot or whatever you choose, but you do not hang your player out to dry in public like that. That's just poor taste, I'm afraid. And it also should be mentioned that at one particular point, Alex McCarthy, who is, of course, now the second choice keeper with Ramsdale having come in, and given that Ramsdale is now the highest paid player at the club, despite having conceded, probably the most goals in the Premiership after this week, it's basically a case of, as Dire Straits would say, money for nothing. And Southampton are in dire straits right now, so far away from salvation, it's scary, really. But unless Russell is really willing to, look inside himself and say, maybe I need to do things, differently, things may not change. But I mentioned Alex McCarthy. At one particular point last season, he was third in the pecking order behind Gavin Bazunu and Joe Lumley, of all people. And then when Bazunu got his shoulder injury that ruled him out for the was it a shoulder or knee injury? I forget which one it was. But at one point, McCarthy wasn't even back in. It was only after McCarthy came back in that Southampton started to do a little bit better. And of course, we all know that they won the playoff final. And after that, McCarthy got that 2-year deal when a lot of people were predicting that he could move to Saudi Arabia or even the likes of Celtic to replace Joe Hart. And now, after 2 games where he's only conceded 2 goals, he's had to take a back seat and watch his replacement literally ship goals in left, right, and centre. I mean, at least he has the consolation of a Carling Cup to look forward to. But that sort of puts Southampton's promotion in perspective. It was effectively Super Alex McCarthy that helped save the day, and now he's back on the bench. I just don't know if the man management is all right. I don't know if the players are playing for the manager. I just don't know if they're really buying into it. And if you have that sort of a situation, despite what people are saying, I don't think things are well behind the scenes at all. And it may only be a matter of time before, this saint becomes a sinner. So I'm sorry, but I don't think he'll be able to save them. And I think he will definitely lose his job at the end of the season. The only question is, will he be the first one to get the sack, or will it be after 1 or 2?
Yeah. I mean, I echo what you're saying there about Rambo. Obviously, I thought Rambo going there would, stop the goals from leaking in. But obviously, he's not had the best of starts there. But you can't just blame the keeper, can you? Obviously, it's a team game, but he's definitely not had the start he's wanted at Southampton, is he? Joe, your thoughts on Saints and Russell Martin? Will Russell Martin be the man to keep him in the Premier League, or is it straight back down for them?
Well, like Martin said, is he going to be the first one to go? No, Ten Hag will be the first one to go. But I like Southampton because they beat Leeds to the Premier League, so I'm all right with Southampton. But I do think they're in trouble, and I am Martin out, unfortunately.
Interesting.
I just think, like Manny said, slagging off a player in an interview, not necessarily like you said, not necessarily naming them, but slagging off a player in an interview, I think is wrong.
Yeah, no,
I think it's just like a few situations where I've seen at other clubs. I think you just lose the dressing room, and I think that's where the situation is now. And I think the players are more playing for the. I think they're more playing for the money now rather than the love of the football club.
Yeah, no, it's. I think you're everybody, all 3 of you, your point of view there in terms of Southampton. I think are spot on. And I totally agree with all of you on that one. And I think, it must be very, very frustrating from Southampton's point of view. Obviously, they want to see their side stay up, but I don't think any of them can see them staying up under Martin. So, yeah, he probably should go. He should go. But just before we move on to the next manager, just a quick shout out to Early Doors Football TV. Who we'll be seeing a little bit more from very, very shortly when we get to West Ham. But yeah, the next manager, guys, Manny's briefly mentioned him, and they had a good result today against Spurs. Crystal Palace, so Glasner. Good result today, like I just said, but can he... I mean, no, actually, that's probably not a way to put it, but I thought they'd be having a much better season than they have started. I thought Glasner is a quality coach, to be honest. I thought he's a decent manager, so I'm quite surprised that they are struggling. Obviously, they've brought in Eddie Nikita, who I'm sure Manny will have something to say on. But yeah, I must admit, I am surprised they are where they are in the league. But maybe this 1-0 win today may give them a bit of a kickstart, and they might start to climb the table now. But Manny, let's start with yourself, because obviously they've signed Eddie Nikita, a player that I know like Bournemouth were very heavily linked to him around the time Dom Solanke was leaving, and in some respects, I'm kind of glad we didn't sign him. But it's the key to the type of player that can turn things around at Palace and help Glasner get out of trouble.
No, he's not, Matthew. And when I heard that Crystal Palace were willing to put with £30 million for him, I know that this sounds very, very harsh, but it's not for nothing that they say that silly people and their money are very quickly and easily parted. And, you know, all of the talk on Twitter, and I know, you know, Twitter cannot be considered a place for intelligent football discussion, is that he's once again, you know, joined a team, been given some chances, and yet hasn't even scored. And it was actually Jean-Philippe Mateta who basically came back in and gave Crystal Palace their winner. And I suppose the lesson here is Hakuna Mateta, no worries. And that would mean that Eddie is just not ready. And as far as Glasner is concerned, I share your view in that he is a quality manager. Of course, he was the Europa League winner with Eintracht Frankfurt.
Yeah, of course.
And when I heard that Crystal Palace were getting him to replace Roy Hodgson, I told myself those lucky Eagles, they were getting a quality coach. And the run that Palace had, which ensured that they would get that stability they needed and finish at a fairly healthy position in the Premiership last season, was brilliant. And that last day victory where they crushed a much weakened Aston Villa side that had already secured Champions League qualification by then, I think it really underlined the credentials of Glasner and how he was able to get the team working. I just wonder, though, if the departure of Michael Elise has had something to do with the poor start that they've had this season, and they have had some draws. But again, I don't think there has been too much in terms of player departures. I know in addition to Nketiah, they've also got the ex-Arsenal and Forest goalkeeper Matt Turner, who's now on the bench behind Dean Henderson at Palace, and maybe one or two other players as well, I think. But for some reason, Eze without Elise just hasn't been able to shine. And yet, maybe there's some hope in that now that they've found a formula. Yes, it was against Tottenham today, and we all know that they are an up and down, hot and cold team at times. But once they start winning under Glasner, his teams do tend to continue winning. And obviously, I mentioned that run last season. I think the work that Glasner has done last season, obviously this season, he's also trying his level best, and certainly, Palace are a much better team than their position says they are, and they still have to. They are still going to get some much easier games this season, I feel, but they should definitely have won a few of the games they had earlier. I think he definitely needs to be given a longer run, but again, as with the other managers, it will have to be in that December-January period that a final decision will be taken. But I expect Palace to start rising up the table, and I expect Glasner's job to be safe. But next season, he might be given a remit to make sure that Palace start challenging for much higher honours, because there was a lot of hope for this season in lieu of the run they had last season. But I think Glasner should be safe, and I really do like him. I really do think that if he's given more and more confidence, he will really, impose a good style and a good ethic on the team. And Ryan obviously will remember how well they played last season when they beat Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park. But I think Glasner definitely deserves a little bit of some longer rope.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Joe, your views on Glasner?
I think Crystal Palace have got a really good fan base, the Holmesdale fanatics, and I think they deserve more than what they're getting. I like Glasner. He's got brilliant credentials. Like you said, he's won the Europa League with Eintracht Frankfurt, and I think the signing of Eddie Nketiah was a mistake. To be honest, I'd really have sent Eddie Nketiah out on a loan deal to probably League One. I think he'd have been good at someone like Huddersfield or Birmingham.
No, absolutely not. We don't want him here. He's awful. He can't finish.
Yeah, or maybe even Mansfield. Mansfield are doing all right at the moment. But I think Glasner is the man to stay. I think he needs his time. I think the reason why they went on such a good run towards the back end of last season was because it was a new manager boost, and it was just a boost of confidence. But I don't think he's had enough time to fully implement what he wants yet. So I'd be 80%, yeah, keep him up until Christmas and then reassess then. But even then, I still think it'd take a lot to let him go.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good point. Ryan, Glasner.
Yeah, I agree with what everybody else agreed with that. Obviously, yeah, I agree. He's a very good manager, and I did expect them to kick on this season. I do agree. I had the same thing because obviously last year, yes, I know it was obviously he came in, he had that manager bounce, but I still expected them to start this season better than they have. Well, that hasn't happened. Obviously, like I said, they have lost Elise and things like that. So that's a big loss to a club like Palace. You've got to question the recruitment. I'm not sure why they decide to bring in Nketiah for me. For me, was that a club signing or did Glasner want it? That's what I want to know because surely Glasner would have known that Nketiah wasn't the answer to their need for goals in the team because Palace have struggled for goals notoriously in the Premier League. So they needed somebody to come in and be able to, to get those goals. But Nketiah isn't the answer. So that's a bit debatable. But look, for me, you've got to keep with Glasner. And I think it will come good. But you can only work with what you've got. And I think the resource at Palace, again, is very limited. But I'm not making excuses. He should be doing better. But yeah, I don't know. That's my view.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I think Glasner's good manager. I think he will turn it around. I think they'll have a fairly decent season. I think just getting that win under the belt and hopefully their kick on and they will probably have a sort of fairly decent mid-table season. But here's one that I'm sure that we're probably all going to agree on with this one. Now, for me, I think McKenna's a great coach. Obviously, Ryan, you'll probably remember him when he was at United. He's a great coach. I think there's a little bit of a fairy tale behind this and how they've got from League Two, Championship, and then straight into the Premier. Very unlucky yesterday against Brentford. I felt they deserved at least a point out of that one, but I'm hoping and rooting, and I'm going to stick by what I said during the tier list that we did on the channel with Manny, and I think they will just scrape staying up. But yeah, Joe, can McKenna keep Ipswich in the Premier League this season, or is it going to be similar to Luton last year, and it's probably one step too far at this stage?
Heart says yes, mind says no.
Yeah.
Realistically, no. I'd absolutely love him to, but I'd keep him no matter what because I think he's a great bloke. He's made some I think he's made some of the signings of the season. Liam Delap on loan. What a signing. Yeah, he can't play against City, but what a signing. Sammy Schmodix. Brilliant signing. I mean, he scored against Man City and then he scored against Brentford as well. He's on fire. Keeping players like Massimo Luongo as well. Their captain, I think, another big thing. There's just a few players that he signed, and the way I listened to a few of interviews, and he just seems such a confident man. He seems like he has so much confidence in the way he plays, and it's rubbing off. It's rubbing off on the players, and the fact that they're doing how they're playing now, especially to get 3 goals against a Brentford side that have been in the Premier League for a few years. The standout result for me so far for them was the 2-2 draw against Aston Villa. That's a brilliant result. If I was an Ipswich fan, I'd have all belief in him.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Ryan, you got the same belief in McKenna?
Have a little bit of a different outlook on it, really. Like, obviously, look, I think he's a good manager. There's no denying that. But I just, I go back to it. You've got to be winning games. You've got to, and they haven't won a game yet. So, and they can't buy a win. So, I think it'll be a bit. The step will be too much. It'll be too much for me. I don't think Ipswich will stay up. But I don't think that means that he should still stay on. But you know what I mean. So yeah, I can't see them staying up. I'm afraid.
Manny, over to you.
Well, hopefully you can appreciate the reasoning of my speaking about Luton and Rob Edwards, because obviously when Luton got promoted, there was a huge level of euphoria. And, there was a great deal of excitement involved. Obviously, there was talk about Kenilworth Road having to be, remodeled / enlarged or what have you. But, the fans were up to fight. They loved being in the Premiership, and Rob Edwards could do no wrong. Now, barely a few months since their relegation, they're now struggling to stay up in the Championship. And that could be a potential danger with Ipswich as well, because obviously there was a huge level of euphoria with their successive promotions, and now they're in the big time. And, as founder members of the Premier League, I'm delighted for them, especially when you consider what's happened to the likes of Oldham Athletic, who are almost literally, in oblivion right now. Seeing Ipswich come back is absolutely wonderful. But again, you can't have a situation where you play some amazing football, show some wonderful spirit, win admirers left, right, and centre, and yet just not get enough games or points under your belt to stay up. And that's why Ipswich are now effectively behind the 8 ball. So I would definitely love McKenna to stay at Ipswich, even if the worst happens and they do get relegated. But my biggest fear is that if that happens, obviously they may end up losing quite a few of the big name players that they recruited to help them in this this Championship season. And what's happening to Luton right now could happen to Ipswich next season. So I really do hope that Ipswich can somehow find a way, especially given how Southampton are struggling at the moment very badly. There will be some other teams as well that could end up falling into trouble, but Ipswich need to start winning games. And I'd like to think that McKenna's situation will be a little bit different to Edwards, in that he has a lot more credit in the bank, given that he's had 2 successive promotions. So obviously he knows how to unite a team and get them winning. But it's a bit difficult. If I had to, make a snap decision right now, I'd say Ipswich would end up sadly going down, but McKenna has to stay. I think McKenna has built up too much goodwill with the fans to sort of have them, turn their back on him. And hopefully they can, turn the corner. But I think we're all united in that we can't see that happening right now.
Yeah, no, it's fair dues. It's fair dues.
Just quickly, I think unlike Huddersfield and maybe Luton, that maybe weren't quite ready for the Premier League, I think Ipswich are. I think Ipswich are ready for the Premier League, but I think there's too many good teams in the Premier League at the moment that have too much money and have too good players. Too many good players. Like Man City are. I mean, unless Pep, Haaland, De Bruyne, Ruben Diaz or whatever his name is leave, they're not going to not win the Premier League for a few years, because they're just too good. There are too many good teams in the Premier League at the moment, and I think it'll be at least. I'd give it 5. If looking at the teams that might come up this year from the Championship, I'd say even the teams that come up this year from the Championship, next year in the Premier League, I don't think they'll stay up. I think there's 2. I don't think you can be ready for the Premier League, but I think Ipswich are the most prepared over the last 3 years of teams coming up. I think Ipswich are the most prepared to fight to stay up.
Yeah, it's a fair point, mate. Fair point. Let's have a look at our next one. So we're hoping Ipswich stay up, but like we all say, it's going to be a big ask. But the next manager, yeah, Lopetegui. So there's 5 names in the hat to replace him, if you believe what you read in the press at the minute. But yeah, before we get our views on it and we have a look who's named in the press, we've had a video from Early Doors TV, Tony, a great channel. If you haven't subscribed to it, do subscribe. They do some great shows on there. But this is what he's had to say about West Ham and their manager.
Good evening, Matt and Craig. I hope you're keeping well. Tony here from Early Doors Football TV. Here's my thoughts on Julian Lopetegui and where we stand with him so far. As you know, the recent games have not gone well for West Ham, and you've got to look at how Lopetegui's actually kind of got this team playing at the moment, and which is quite surprising. We seem to be more defensive than David Moyes, which is rare in itself. The performances, when you look at the last one, the Spurs game, we handled ourselves pretty well in the first half, but the second half, it just capitulated within 7.5 minutes, if that, for them to win that game. Previous to that, we did well in the Ipswich game, and I was hoping from that point that he would actually work on this during the international break to carry this into the next game and beyond. But at the moment, it seems that he's failing to get this team to click. Now, as you know, we've signed 9 players plus a loan player, so 10 players in effect that we've got to kind of blend in with this squad. And he's sticking with some of the old guard still, Antonio up top, Souček and Paqueta in the midfield area. But I think we still need to make changes because, we brought in the young, Luis Gilherme. We're not exactly really, seen much of him. There's also Sola. He could be an easy replacement for Paqueta in the middle of the park, which then frees up Somerville as well, another player, which when he's come on, he's been very good for the. He's been his performances have been decent. So hopefully from there we'll see him feature, especially as we know Kudos now has got this 3-match ban. Now I know you want to ask me this question. The vultures apparently are circling around the London Stadium, so we have 5 contenders for this manager's job. I mean, obviously, as always, this name gets bounded around. Southgate, hopefully we're not going to see him because I can't see that being the obvious choice. There is obviously Graham Potter. We know he's free and available. He could be a good fit for West Ham. I think looking at how he is and the players that we've got, I think it's a club that could suit him. Michael Carrick, doing well at Middlesbrough, but I don't think it's the right move for him at this stage. I think he needs to get more experience under his belt, and I think the fans will also demand a bit more from him as well. As you know, my favourite, Thomas Frank, I'd love to see him come to the club. I just like what he does with the fans. He interacts with those, and he gets the best of both worlds in that respect. And a 12th man, so, it'd be ideal if we can get hold of him. But again, I know he's touted also for the Man United job. And to lead up to the last one, which is kind of poignant considering we're talking about Man United, and we've got them coming up on Sunday, is Jose Mourinho. So there's a lot of rumours flying around that he possibly could be West Ham bound. Well, we know his track record. It could be a good fit in certain respects, but he's not going to get the money. He's not going to be backed like he was. But hopefully with the squad that he's got, he could do something with them. And as you know, he brings cups, he brings silverware. So there is that possibility. So yeah, that's my roundup on Lopetegui. I mean, obviously we've got Man United tomorrow. This is his opportunity to kind of get one up over Ten Hag. As you know, both managers are under pressure, but it seems to be every time Ten Hag's under pressure, the club comes up trumps for him, or the squad does anyway. So hopefully we'll see something from there. But that's all I can say, guys. I mean, as always, great work these two do. Keep that up. And thanks for your support for this channel as well, and vice versa, supporting yours channel. But hopefully he'll see you next time. Thanks again.
Okay, and that was Tony there from Early Doors. Just before we move on to discuss this part of the section, Joe, thank you very much for coming on tonight, buddy. I wish Tranmere all the best for the rest of the season. Hope the takeover does materialise and goes all well for you guys up there. But just give your Twitter account a shout out before you shoot, mate.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's at TRFC Joe S. It's Tranmere Rovers Show with the little $sign for ASAP Rocky, of course. But yeah, thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No, definitely. It's been great to have you on, mate. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully sometime soon you can join us again.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, cheers, buddy. Thanks for joining us.
See ya.
So,
Cheers, buddy.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, Mr. Manny, I shall add you back in. And also, we're going to add in another guest. We've just heard from him, but he's now joining us live. It's Tony from Early Doors. Hello, Tony. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, mate. Who's actually get you head on just a minute ago on that video?
Yes. Well, nice to have you join us in person.
Thanks so much for that, and good to see Ryan and obviously Manny as well in the background somewhere.
Yeah, Manny is here, live and kicking. Right. So, obviously, we just heard briefly from yourself, Tony. So, I'm just going to throw it to the other two guys. Manny, Lopetegui, what do you think? I mean, they've had a decent result against United today, but is he the man for West Ham long term, or what's your views?
Well, I'd like to offer my apologies to all of you. The reason why I sort of had to go out and come back in was because I couldn't really hear very much of what Tony was saying in the video, and it was sort of the audio was sort of coming on and off and on and off, and I barely heard one or two sentences. So I thought I probably should just go out, come back in, wait for the video to get over, and maybe I can, have a chin wag with Tony about what he was saying. But one thing which I do remember him saying from the video is that Lopetegui has now started to play a little bit more defensively than David Moyes. And as a lifelong Hammer fan, I'm sure that that's not something that he would have wanted. That's not something that the Hammer fans would wanted either. And you just get the feeling that in games gone by, West Ham just wouldn't be able to make the advantage count. I was a bit surprised when James Ward-Prowse was allowed to go to Forest on loan. I thought he had a really good start to last season, maybe perhaps away a little bit. But even with the likes of, Kudus and obviously Bowen and others in that team, there is enough attacking potential to make sure that they can score some goals. And defensively, obviously, with the ex-gunner Mavropanos, among others, still there, I thought that maybe defensively they'd be a little bit weak. Perhaps one masterstroke today was dropping Alphonse Areola and bringing the former Polish international and also a former gunner, Łukasz Fabianski, back at the team. And although he did have a scary moment where, there was an open goal, only for Diogo Dalot to completely balloon it over, I thought he had a pretty good game. Commentators, of course. And with regard to Lopetegui as a whole, obviously I wasn't really too impressed by the job he did at Wolves and the way he left. And the thing about him is that, yes, he was able to win Europa League with Sevilla, but you know what? So has Unai Emery. So has Mendilibar. So, it's not like, that's something. It's not like an impossible job, especially if you're a more than decent enough manager and you can get the best out of your players. But one of the biggest red flags for me with regard to Lopetegui were obviously the way he, was sacked from his job as manager of the Spain national team and how his stint at Real Madrid didn't go to plan. And when you have those sort of red flags over there, not so much for his coaching style, but also for the way he went about things, I just don't know if he's a person who can really be necessarily trusted. And I was very surprised, I'll tell you right now, when he was hired. And obviously results have not gone too well. I'd like to think that maybe today would be the start of something good, maybe that they're starting to come together. But the fact that there is still talk about him being replaced is possibly a sign that maybe the fans are not really invested in him. And Tony, maybe you can, either confirm or, refute what I'm saying. But I just don't know if he will be the club to take them forward, especially when you consider not too long ago they were European Conference League champions and regularly taking part in, European competitions, to suddenly be in a situation where, they are fighting to keep themselves in. I'm not sure that's what you would have wanted.
No, for me, it was a Sullivan appointment. I don't think anyone really wanted him to be in charge. I'm very much with you, Manny, in the fact that looking at his previous stint in the Premier League with Wolves and how that ended, my thing when we heard that he was going to be coming in was, okay, we know his track record, we know what he's all about. I'm jury out until I see something going on. And to be fair, one thing we can say as a positive note was they backed this fella. 9 players, 10 if you include the lone player of Sola. So that kind of showed you where we was looking to aim with the players we brought in. And it just sort of signposted that what Sullivan's looking for is to get back into Europe and hopefully we'll finish in the top half of the table. But unfortunately, Lopetegui's style of management is too much change. You're seeing inconsistency after inconsistency. You're saying about this game being the kickstart. It was actually, for me, was the Ipswich game. From there, once he got that result, that 4-1 result, we had the international break, and that's where he should have actually got hold of this team and worked on them, ready for the Spurs game and beyond. And we know how that game turned out. So I think the fans are very divided in this manager, but also the one thing you've not kind of said, the players are as well. We saw that with Kudos and his frustration and how he took it out on Van der Ven. But that because him and Lopetegui and that there's those, by the sounds of it, the rumour in the camp is there's no love lost between these two. Then, there was a rumour that Kudos also wants out of the club because of this fella.
Interesting.
Wow.
I didn't realise he wanted out of the club. Yeah, so that's quite a biggie. Ryan, have you got any questions for Tony, or you got any views on Lopetegui that you wanna give us?
Well, for me, I'm not particularly a fan of Lopetegui, to be honest with you. I think, like you say, the job he did at Wolves, it was awful. If I was a West Ham fan and he came at the start of summer, I don't really think I'd be that excited, to be honest with you. And like I say, it has been backed, and look what we've seen. So, yeah, but in terms of questions, I don't know. I should have a question. Do you think that Lopetegui will do you think you should stick with Lopetegui now, or do you think you should get rid of him, even though you won today? And if you do get rid of him, who would you like to see come in?
I think the biggest problem is any manager coming into a club, you've got this transition period, and signing all those players, they're not going to work straight away. They're not going to work overnight. So in that respects, you've got to say, okay, we've got to give this fellow a chance because he's got a lot of work to do. He's a new fellow in. He's had to kind of rebuild this squad in certain respects because obviously, I wouldn't say it's kind of the mess that Moyes left in. It's just the fact of Moyes knew he was going to be here this season. He was gone. So he's had they brought this fellow in, rightly or wrongly, and he's got to gel this team to work. But for me, I know there's certain West Ham people that's been in my show as well as shows I've been in, and they're saying, well, give him a chance. There's others saying he's got to go now. If this result didn't go our way, and I know there's certain people saying, well, we was lucky you got that penalty, and that, the VAR decision saved your bacon. If we got into that bottom 4 and we can't get ourselves out of that, then we've only got 2 months until the new year starts. And usually at that stage, if you're down in that neck of the woods, you're not getting out of it. Only if you're really lucky.
Yeah.
So I think the board itself are actually considering, as Matt's put on the, these 5 names in the hat to replace him. I think they've already kind of discussed who should be getting in. For me, out them 5 you've put up there, the one you haven't put up there, which has always been my favourite, I'd prize Thomas Frank away from Brentford. That's the one. That's the one for me. Yeah. Not being funny though, and I know certain West Ham fans do not want him coming anywhere near the club, but Graham Potter, in certain respects, would probably be a good fit at West Ham because he knows, the Premier League, he knows the players, and I think he can actually get something out of the team. He did it with Brighton. He made the biggest mistake by going to Chelsea. Yeah. He should never have done that in the month of Sundays. I mean, he aged the man. You can see how he aged as well by doing that job. There's also the rumour that, possibly Moyes 3.0. Can't go down that route, that's for sure. Carrick, no. Unfortunately, as much as he was good for West Ham, he's not hit them kind of levels to warrant becoming a West Ham manager. Southgate and the other geezer. No.
I thought Southgate was your favourite.
Oh no, that's for Man United, Matt. That was Man United's favourite. But no, my top one is Thomas Frank. Always has been, always will be. I think I like what he does at Brentford. It's the fact that he knows how to kind of work with the players, but not only that, he also knows how to engage with the fans and basically get them on board. So in effect, you've got that 12th man with you every single time. I like that.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I'm not Thomas Frank's biggest fan, to be fair, but I do kind of see why you'd prefer him over the 5 you got in front of you there. Manny, if you were on West Ham's board and you had to make the decision of who you'd replace Lopetegui with, which one of these 5 would you replace him with and why?
It doesn't look like a very promising list to me, to be honest with you. Having suffered through Gareth Southgate with England, I'm pretty certain that I wouldn't want him anywhere near West Ham on the board. I'm pretty sure that Ryan would agree with me on that. We remember all of his rants during the Euros very fondly indeed. And as far as Potter is concerned, I really sort of he needs to join another club to rebuild his reputation, but not a club with the history and the tradition of West Ham. If he can sort of, regain some confidence and sort of get himself back into the saddle that way, that would be the best thing for him, because we can all agree he never should have taken the Chelsea job. It was far too much, far too soon. Carrick, I'd like to see him continue to do as well as he's doing at Middlesbrough. And with Moyes, I'm reminded of a famous poem: never look back, never surrender that future you've earned. Keep the track to that beaten track and never return to those bridges you've burnt. I do not think it would be nice for him to go back to West Ham for a 3rd time. And I certainly don't think he should go back to Everton a 2nd time. And I don't think Everton would need to sack Sean Dyche anyway. I'm not too sure who the 4th one is. But another name that I'm sort of thinking of, and we were discussing him earlier, if the worst thing happens and Wolves do decide to sack Gary O'Neill, then let's also consider that Gary O'Neill had a stint at West Ham as a player, and I'm sure you remember him. And O'Neill does have a knack of being able to work fairly well with are also in relegation trouble and sort of keep them afloat. And it would be in some ways like a bit of a homecoming for him. And obviously you might want to try and rescue the situation if things completely go belly up. So would you consider him, or is he perhaps a little bit too unproven for you?
No, I would consider him as well. Fair enough, we talked it on the show earlier. And I think Anthony brought that up, and it was a case of that. It's a fair comment because, yes, he played for us and he wore his heart on his sleeve when he played for West Ham. And you could see his style at Bournemouth, you can see it at Wolves. And the ironic thing, isn't it, when you think Lopetegui saying that Wolves didn't back me, and and that's why I'm walking. Yet Gary O'Neill comes in and found no problem whatsoever.
Yeah.
So it was a case of chalk and cheese there and then. So yeah, I'll take Gary O'Neill as well. That's another choice.
Yeah, I do remember him when he was at West Ham, and he was a quality player at West Ham.
Mm.
Remember him at Pompey as well.
Yes,
Yeah, that would be an interesting sort of switch around there. Ryan, obviously, is a United fan. This guy has also been heavily linked to United as well. Would you take him at West Ham or United?
I mean, he's a good manager. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just not too sure, to be honest with you. He possibly could be a good fit for West Ham. But I'm not too sure on United. I think, it looks like Ineos are keeping Ten Hag, so because they should have got rid of him in the international break, in my opinion, but they didn't. So they've kept him. So for me, he seems like it's going to have to get even worse somehow, which I don't even know how it can get any worse at United to the moment. But Ineos are accepting mediocrity. So I think for Thomas Frank to come to United, I don't think he's going to be able to handle that, unfortunately. Yeah, the scrutiny. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that West Ham. I think that West Ham obviously expect to win games, and you know what I mean. A lot of expectancy as well, but I just think at United it is still another level. So yeah.
No, fair play. Well, just to finish off tonight, obviously we're approaching the 2-hour mark now. And if we can go with you first, Tony, because obviously you've jumped in now, and obviously we didn't really get your views on. We've had a little bit on Gary O'Neill, but Glasner, Russell Martin, McKenna. Who would you pick? Or who would you pick? Is probably the wrong way to put it. But who would you say may end up for the chop first out of these 5? Obviously, you could probably chuck Ten Hag in there as well, but I don't know whether United will end up sacking him or not, to be honest. But I mean, out of these 5, I mean, who do you reckon will get the chop first?
Yeah, I mean, fun enough you said about the Ten Hag thing, and as Ryan alluded to, the international break, 7 hours in talks, and we're still waiting to know what the answer is of that 7-hour talk on Ten Hag. So that's interesting in itself.
That was all PR to me.
Yeah,
there were never any intention to get rid of him, because you don't need to go multiple meetings. You can see what's happening on the field, so you either get rid of him or you don't need meetings. It was also publicity, that, in my opinion. But sorry to interrupt.
Looking at the 5 there, though, I think Southampton will stick with their manager at the end of the day, because he's done well to get him up there, and I think if they get rid of him now, then they're going to be in no better position to get themselves out of the rot where they are. Gary O'Neill could possibly be the one, first of all. McKenna, I can't see that happening with him. Glasner, well, he'll either walk before he's pushed. Because that's the strange one in itself. When you think he came in and took over from Brian Hodgson, turned that team around, and you're expecting him to be backed in the summer window. And what they did more than anything else was sell their silverware. And they've only just managed to hold on to Gay for the time being. But January transfer window's coming up. Who knows what's going to happen from that point onwards? So I think in the order of it, you probably got O'Neill first of all, probably Glasner. Maybe in that order as you got it. Yeah, them 2 first of all, and the other 3 will just probably get by. Lopetegui is a pivot of the balancing scales. Will he or won't he? But I think if the results carry on as they are, because we can't keep them going on a win and a loss, a win and a loss, and a win and a loss. 9 points in 9 games is despicable for even a standard of, or the stature of a club like West Ham. We're not exactly the biggest of the greatest, but you expect to get more points at this stage, considering some of the teams we've played and with the squad that we've actually got.
Yeah. I mean, before I come to yourself, Ryan and Manny, just quickly, we've got a question for Tony here from Gary O'Neill's #1 fan, Craig. Would
Craig.
West Ham fans really be happy with the style that Gary O'Neill plays? Effective, but probably more Moyes than what we play under Areola. But then Lopetegui should be different. Craig loves a bit of Gary O'Neill. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Just to keep Craig happy.
I think if you look at it, excuse me. In certain respects, you got to look at Gary O'Neill. He's played for West Ham. He knows the West Ham way. He knows the style of what the fans want. So that in itself should be a kind of plus point in that respects. The interesting one I'm saying about probably more Moyes than what we play under Areola. But if you look at it, Lopetegui is worse than Moyes when it comes to being defensive. And he was a goalkeeper. So he should know better what to look for and how he should get this team to gel. So no, I mean, I wouldn't be so fussed if Gary O'Neill come in and that, because I feel like I said, his previous history with the club and the style of football, he may play, but if it's effective, that's better than being counter negative, which we are showing in certain games we've been playing. I mean, the only thing you can praise Lopetegui for today is he made the right call in dropping Paqueta, dropping Areola, making changes. The one thing that was negative out of that was Solo really showed us nothing. But the 3 changes at half time was the game changer for us.
Okay. Ryan, who do you think? Well, if you were going to have to pick one, who do you reckon will be first out the door?
For me, I have to go with Russell Martin. I think for me, he's showing no signs of being able to take it. Yes, he's done well to get Southampton to where they are, but you can't just live off that. Southampton need to try and stay up, and I can't see him turning it around. They haven't won a game yet. They don't look like winning a game yet. They're conceding goal left, right, and centre. Yes, you should stick to your principles, but he's been too stubborn. So, yeah, and I think we've already discussed it as well earlier about how he seems to have lost some of the dressing room. I think for me, calling out players as well is just completely ridiculous. So yeah, for me, Russell Martin has to go. Not a big fan. I don't particularly like his personality either. So yeah, good riddance if he does go. Yeah, I don't like him, guys.
Yeah, but if you look at it though, right, that's kind of in certain respects, that's how old school managers used to be. You got to remember back in the day, and that, given the chance and that, he'll have him up by the scruff of the neck, feet off the floor, saying, "I want to get the best out of you guys," and they'll have a fight in the actual change room without everyone knowing. Now it's all about cotton wool, and you've got to be careful how you speak to my players because you'll offend them. They earn more money than me, so how do you expect that? So yeah, I get what you're saying, but the cool players out.
Sorry, I just don't particularly like the way he comes across either. I don't think I could play for somebody like that. I think he's just very, I don't know, he's just got that, he's just the way he is. I just don't think, I know what you're saying though about the players. I think the players have become too soft, but unfortunately that's the way the game's gone. So
it's true. It's true. Yeah, but we could mention other managers that's got that arrogance about them as well. I think they're better than what they are, but they only drew today, by the way, just to let you know, they only drew. But
Absolutely, Tony. Absolutely.
Oh, sorry, Manny. I forgot you asked. Of course, my bad. Of course, I like you. I like you.
Manny.
No, Tony. Let me tell you, you're absolutely spot on. Simple.
It's true.
Manny, let's have the final word from yourself. Who would you axe first?
I'm with Ryan. I definitely get rid of Russell Martin. I think if results are not going to improve and the team just doesn't look as though they're willing to respond to him and he continues to have these mad rants, then it cannot be good for, building any kind of unity or harmony. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to let the players off the hook. I think the ironic thing is that he spoke about how after one loss, he was looking to try and ring some changes in and bring in some players with desire, and maybe that was what he should do. I don't know if he really necessarily did any of that. I don't think we've seen any of these changes. If you're too outspoken, then, the only way you can get away with being as outspoken as you are is if you're Jose Mourinho, and we all know he has the silverware to back it up. But if you're Russell Martin, you've won the playoff final and you think you're the bee's knees, I'm sorry, but I can't. You've got to have some sort of humility and a sense of self-deprecation at the worst of times, and I don't see that in him. So he might be the first to go. And as sad as it is for me to say, if I have to put them in some order, I think Gary O'Neill might be the next one to go, because obviously he will be under even more pressure, and especially given that he's going to be coming up against Glasner, who had that big win today. A lot will be expected of this Wolves. They are going to have to start turning the corner very quickly. But third, most likely, will be Lopetegui. Even this win, I don't know if it's going to really, just delay the inevitable. And Tony did mention they had a good win over McKenna's Ipswich earlier this season. But they're also going to need to start, really performing better, and then maybe playing the way that the fans would want them to play. And I think we can all agree that Lopetegui's appointment as West Ham manager was misguided from the very beginning. And then Glasner should more or less safe, although results could put him back in the crossfire. McKenna also should be safe at least until the end of the season. That's my view. But I've also thrown it out there that if O'Neill and Lopetegui do lose their jobs, then there should be a vacancy at the Boleyn ground for O'Neill very quickly. I don't think Lopetegui will be welcomed back at Wolverhampton anytime soon, though.
Imagine that. Let's swap.
Yeah, no, definitely. I don't think he'd be welcome back there, would he? After the way he left was pretty poor, really, wasn't it? But well, that kind of wraps the show up tonight. Thanks to Joe from Tranmere for joining us earlier on for the Tranmere feature, and obviously Tony, thank you for jumping on last minute. It's great to have you on. Just give your channel a quick shout out before we go, buddy.
Yeah, sure. It's early football. Early Doors Football TV. You can find me doing the Sunday night takeaway show at 8 o'clock. So obviously Matt was on that last week, which was really great to have him on there. Craig, I know you're in the background. Love to have you on at some point as well. Wednesday, got the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's with the Man United fan, Hot Fuzz, and Anthony Herbert, the Arsenal fan. And it'd be a Halloween special for that one as well. So
fancy dress?
Yes. Fuzzy's going to actually look like Ten Hag, and he's going to kind of get the Brill cream out and do his hair Lego head just like Arteta and that. And I've got to find a wig to look like Lopetegui. So yeah, should be all good in that respect.
Yeah, excellent. I would like to say your channel's great.
You're a glutton for punishment, Tony.
Yeah, always, man. You know that. I'm a West Ham fan. What do you expect?
Yeah, no, it's a great channel. Like I say, I've thoroughly enjoyed myself coming onto your channel, Tony. It's been great. Manny, thanks once again for coming on to this show tonight. Obviously, you do quite a lot of shows with us on Up the Trades and all departments, so it's been a privilege to have you on, buddy. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure, mate. Thank you.
Oh, just quickly before we go.
Good evening, Jose.
There he is.
How does he feel after today's result?
Yes, if we had a bit more time, we'd ask him. But I'm sure he's not too impressed with that performance today.
It was our cup final last week, so it must have been their final this week. It's my turn to get back on him now.
Yeah. Wow. Ryan. Yeah. Another show done.
Another show done. Fantastic show. Really enjoyed it again. And just brilliant. But yeah, on to the next one, as the saying goes.
Yes, and stay tuned to all our social media for when we're doing our next one. It will be at some point next week. I've got a funny feeling it might have a bit of a FA Cup feel, the next one. But keep your eyes peeled because the FA Cup first round next week, isn't it?
Yeah, we play on Friday night on BBC Two.
Yes. And who are Huddersfield playing?
Tamworth. Yeah, so the banana skin away from home.
Hopefully
we don't fall. Everyone wants Tamworth to win. I know they were like an underdog story, but I hope we get through. But anyway, yeah, FA. I love FA Cup. It's great traditional tournament, isn't it, in this country? So
yeah, definitely looking forward to it. Well, until the next time, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and from my point of view, up the Cherries, great draw yesterday, and we'll see you all soon.
talkSPORT Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the talkSPORT Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search talkSPORT